The mother of the first Navy SEAL who was killed in Iraq is now responding to comments that were made by General Martin Dempsey, where the chairman of the Joint Chiefs appears to downplay the significance of potentially losing Ramadi to ISIS. Listen to this.
The city itself is, it's not symbolic in any way. It's not been declared, part of the caliphate on one hand or central to the future of Iraq. The issue here is not brick and mortar. It's about defeating ISIL. So, as I said, I would much rather that Ramadi not fall, but it won't be the end of a campaign. Should it fall, we got to get it back.
A lot of people shook their heads at so many elements of that statement. Mark Lee became the first Navy SEAL to lose his life in Ramadi back in 2006 during Operation Iraqi Freedom. His mother, Debbie Lee, writing in an open letter, quote, "My son and many others gave their future in Ramadi. Ramadi mattered to them. You, sir, owe an apology to the families whose loved ones' blood was shed in Ramadi. Ramadi matters to us and is very symbolic to us," she writes. KT McFarland served as the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense in the Reagan administration. She's also a Fox News national security analyst, of course. KT, very sort of unthinking words on the part of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, strategically and personally. Let's start with the personal part for Debbie Lee.
Debbie Lee's a friend of mine, and she sent the letter to me as well. I was rip-roaring mad when I saw what General Dempsey said, and I was rip-roaring mad, even madder, when I read her letter. America's leaders, our military and civilian leaders, this isn't a political thing, but they took us to war. They took us to 2 wars, and they lost those wars, and they're continuing to lose those wars. And what are they doing? Instead of apologizing or instead of figuring out how to win these wars, they're saying, well, they're not that important, or, it's not of strategic value to us. They took our men and women to war, our kids to war, not their kids usually, in most cases, somebody else's kids, and those kids have paid the price. They will pay the price for the rest of their lives. That's the ones who have survived. Those are the ones who are going to have lifelong injuries. The mental injuries, physical injuries, their families are going to have to live with that for the rest of their days. They're also going to have to live with the empty place at the table where somebody died carrying out the orders of those military and political leaders. So I am just outraged when our leaders come back to us and say, it wasn't that important. It's not that important anyway. Don't mind. It's okay. I went through the same thing during Vietnam, during the Cold War. We lost that war, and our political and military leaders never apologized. In fact, the worst thing was they blamed the military for it. They blamed the young men and women. At least we're not doing that now. We're not blaming them, but we're not taking care of them. And Martha, I think the important thing to say to anybody who says to me, my son died in vain, my daughter was sacrificed, I say, he didn't die in vain. Maybe we lost Vietnam, maybe we lost Iraq, maybe we're going to lose Afghanistan. They died for a reason, and that is because the United States Constitution says we have civilian control of the military. That's what they died for. They died defending that Constitution. We may have political and military leaders who make stupid decisions, but at least our men and women in uniform proudly carried out that Constitution, and that's what you have to say to them. Their sacrifice was not in vain because it kept this country free.
You look at Martin Dempsey as he says those words, and you can't help but wonder if he's towing the White House line. And he's a military leader, and he's the commander of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So he is the person that everybody out there is looking to have direction from. Now, even if you want to say, and let's put a map up of this area, I mean, even the argument on a very, technical level, that Ramadi doesn't matter, the capital of Anbar province. If ISIS is able to gain a foothold in that area, that much closer to Baghdad, I mean, look at this circle of control on this map. How could he possibly argue that Ramadi does not matter, even strategically, KT?
What he's arguing is spin control. They're not going to win that war. They're not going to win that battle for Ramadi. So what are they going to do? They say, well, it's not so important anyway. We're going to do other things. Just somebody should just level with the American people. They've screwed this up. This administration has screwed it up, and frankly, the previous administration has screwed it up. And what are they continuing to do? They're all much more worried about spin control than they are the sacrifices they've asked of the American people in blood and treasure. I mean, I just think he should apologize at a minimum.
Do you think he will?
What do you think? Never complain, never explain, right? That's the motive in Washington. That's the mantra. He should apologize, and so should the people who have so ill-served our American military for the last decade.
Can't say anything better than that. KT, thank you very much. Good to have you here as always.